Very important. Okay. Because we have two speakers tonight and we want to get everybody out in about an hour, we're going to go ahead and dive into our business tonight. And the first item of business we have is approval of the January GMM minutes. They were posted on the member homepage. So can I get a motion to approve the January GMM minutes? Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second? Thanks, Tandra. We are going to show the QR code. If you can go ahead and vote using the QR code, I will give everybody a couple minutes to do that. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and give our reminders, a few housekeeping reminders for this evening. You all know the drill by now, but if you would like meeting credit for attending this meeting, you need to have been pre-registered on jldallas.org. You just stay until the scheduled end of the meeting. You can only get credit if you enter the meeting within the first 15 minutes. As I mentioned, we do expect our meeting tonight to end around 8 p.m. If you're joining online, and I think we have about 200 or over 200 online, please make sure that the name and the email address that you entered when you joined the meeting is the same, or at least one of those is the same as what is in the JLD directory online. That just makes the meeting credit process move much faster. You do need to leave about 2 weeks for that to happen. Tonight's meeting is being recorded. It is going to be posted for viewing on demand. So if you have friends that are interested in hearing the speakers tonight, but they weren't able to come or join us online, please let them know. That'll be up for about 2 weeks. Is that right? Yeah, 2 weeks. And you can get a registration link from the member homepage. They'll send you the link to the video, and then you can take the survey and get credit for it. So again, please do allow a couple of weeks for your credit to show up. And then finally, if you are a speaker tonight giving an announcement or speaking, please make sure to speak directly into the mic because that helps our friends online hear a little bit better. So as I said, we're really excited to have April Allen here. April is president and COO of the Southern Gateway Public Green Foundation, and she's leading the development of the Southern Gateway Park down in South Dallas. Parks have been very top of mind for JLD this year, particularly with the introduction of one of our new signature projects. Jacqueline Wassam and Laura Maynor are going to chair that project next year, and I would love to invite Laura up here to say a few words about that project and introduce April.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Well, as Emily mentioned, I am one of the co-chairs and Laura Maynor, and I am so passionate about this project. The league is passionate, and I hope that you all will also share a passion for it. To get us all into the headspace for both Parks and April's talk this evening, I'd love to take just the next 30 seconds and to have you think of a time when you were outside that fostered feelings of community, calm, and/or awe. So think of that. And if you can share with your neighbors for just the next 30 seconds, and everyone attending online, if you can just type it into the chat, we would love to see some of that. Again, community, calm, and/or awe. Okay, I know there's a lot of exciting conversation happening. Definitely catch up with your neighbor afterwards, but in order to get us out on time, I do want to move to introducing this evening's first speaker. April Allen is the president and COO of the Southern Gateway Public Green Foundation. She's leading the development of the Southern Gateway Park, a park with purpose, currently under construction over I-35 and the Dallas Zoo. It's an historic infrastructure investment that will knit back together West and East Oak Cliff and catalyze transformation in Southern Dallas. April received a BSc in mechanical engineering from Waterloo University and an MBA from Harvard Business School. She's an alumna of Leadership Dallas and is a native of Toronto, Canada, but has happily made her home in Oak Cliff for the past 15 years. She and her husband, Sean, are active members of the Concord Church and proud parents of their son, August and Ellis. Please welcome April.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I see my LD friends here. Yay. So anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity to share a bit about what we're doing in Southern Dallas. And so thank you, League and everyone here for the opportunity to speak. So let me jump in. I know we have limited time. I'm going to run through some slides. It'll take me about 15 minutes and then we'll have time for a few questions, I think. Perfect. So speaking into the mic, making sure I'm doing that. We call this park, Southern Gateway Park, a park with a purpose, because while we want to build a beautiful green space that the entire community can enjoy, of course, this is an area where folks have limited access to parks within walking distance. We really also are hoping that this park will catalyze the type of economic opportunity that we know has been missing in this part of town, and really be very intentional about how it can improve the lives of the people who live around the project. So I do start with this slide. Some of you may have seen this stat before, but I think it's kind of interesting. Southern Dallas is really quite large. If you think about the area just south of Interstate 30, it makes up about 60% of the landmass of the city of Dallas, but only contributes about 10 to 15% of the property value. And of course, that is an imbalance that doesn't really benefit really anyone in our city. And so we have an opportunity to, I think, grow the tax base by growing Southern Dallas. I've heard the regional chamber say, as goes the city of Dallas, goes the region, DFW region. And I would argue that as goes Southern Dallas, goes the city of Dallas, goes the region, because we have a huge opportunity to kind of right size out that imbalance. Southern Dallas is physically larger than the entire city of Atlanta. So huge, huge, huge opportunity that's untapped. And we're excited to be leading this effort to improve that. We hear a lot about all the folks that are moving to Dallas and the DFW area from all parts. Maybe some folks here have moved to Dallas recently. But a lot of that growth is really going to the suburbs. So northern suburbs, southern rig suburbs. The city of Dallas itself has not really experienced that double-digit growth that we hear a lot about. And so again, I think we have an opportunity with this project to really grow our city by growing Southern Dallas. And that's what this slide is. Next slide. So I'd like to start with just a bit of history. This on the left-hand side, what you're looking at is a map of Oak Cliff. So Oak Cliff actually was its own city. It was annexed by the city of Dallas in 1910. And so that's a historic map. And you see there, I-35 is the red line that's going through Oak Cliff. So when decisions were made about where freeways would go back in the 60s when they were building out the interstate system, unfortunately, a lot of times the direction of freeways went through neighborhoods that had sort of the path of least political resistance. And you couple that with all kinds of unfortunate inequitable policies, and we see the effects of that to this day. It's not an accident that this part of our city has not experienced the same growth that other parts have. But we have this opportunity to kind of address that, I think, heal some of the wounds that resulted from that, really bridge the north-south divide that we hear a lot about by building this project. On the right-hand side is an image of the freeway when it was being built through the neighborhood. And so our park will literally fill that cavern that you're seeing. In the foreground is Ewing, in the background is Marsalis Avenue, and that's where the park will be. Next slide. So we think about this project as an infrastructure of opportunity. We're making this massive investment. It's a $200 million project in this area. When it's completed, it'll be about 5 acres, which is about the same footprint as Clyde Warren, to give you a reference point. But we are building it in 2 phases on the next slide. So the first phase is a little over half of the park. And that's what's currently under construction. If you've driven on I-30 beside the zoo recently, you will have driven under the bridge for the project. And our foundation is responsible for building all the fun stuff on top of that. So our goal is to start construction on those items really not too long from now in June. We are also working, while we kind of simultaneously work to complete the first phase, we are also working to identify funding for the bridge on the second phase. That will have to come from public sources. And so we are working with our public partners at really every level of government, federal, state, county, city, to identify the funding for the second phase, because we do want to have a complete park when we're finished. So next slide. I like to sort of talk about the fact that this project really is kind of the nexus for a lot of exciting activity in Southern Dallas right now. So if you think about even starting in West Dallas, over in the Trinity Groves area, kind of around to Sylvan 30 into Bishop Arts. And then on the east side, now we've got the new convention center plan. You've got the Forest Theater work that's happening in South Dallas, and then even over to Fair Park. There's just a lot of exciting opportunity. Cedar Crest Golf Course just reopened after a big revamp. And so the park really is kind of at the center of pulling that all together for this area. It also has a lot of plans for access to just ensure that it doesn't become just a regional visit place that people visit, but that also people in the surrounding community can benefit from it. So there is work being done to bring hike and bike trails to this area. They're looking at extending the streetcar that currently comes in over the viaduct from Union Station into Bishop Arts, extending that over to the park so that it kind of makes a natural connection with the Zoo Dart Station. And then the zoo itself actually has a massive plan that they're about to embark on, where they'll be spending about $100 million to kind of update the zoo. They'll be moving the entrance over to Ewing. Much of what's surface parking lot adjacent to the park right now will actually turn into public green space. So it's really kind of an exciting time to be in this area, and we're thrilled about the progress that we're making. Next slide. This slide, we just share a bit about what's happening in Southern Dallas. I get asked this question a lot. We've been talking about Southern Dallas for decades. What's different about right now? And I think what's different is that we really have no place else to grow our city in terms of available space and opportunity. And we're seeing that flywheel going. So this is just an idea of some of the projects that we already have underway. Of course, many of you may have heard of Red Bird, the project that Peter Brodsky's led to renovate and update Redbird Mall. Lots happening in the UNT Dallas area. And then of course in Bishop Arts and Wynwood Village, actually just announced a Target's gonna be going into Wynwood Village, which we're all very excited about. So there's just a lot of opportunity. And again, if we wanna grow our tax base in Dallas, in the city of Dallas, I argue that we can do that by growing this area. Next slide. I think people are not always aware of the growth that's already happening. So this is just an example on the east side of the park. We are seeing some infill, new housing development. These are ranging in the 500 to 600,000 range. Of course, we want to see this growth, but we also want to ensure that people who live in these neighborhoods don't get negatively impacted by this. And I'll talk about that in a bit, but just an idea of that. We can go to the next slide. And then we do also are trying to track and really sort of monitor affordable housing, workforce housing in the area. And so our hope is that when this project is complete, we actually will see more high quality affordable units than are currently there, because many of the units that are currently there are just sort of at end of life in terms of their current state. Next slide. So this is an aerial view. I think if you press next, it might just, yeah, there we go. This is the kind of flyover of the area if you haven't been here lately. So we're looking at the first phase deck. To the right is the zoo, and to the left is the neighborhood. This is just 3 minutes from downtown, about 3 minutes from Bishop Arts, surrounded by several schools. It's a middle school off in the background there. That's the new Dallas County service building in adjacent to the park, about a half block off of the park. So we're really excited about the opportunities that we have to make this both a destination for visitors as well as a place that really benefits the community as a whole. We can go to the next slide. At our core, we are a public-private partnership. So I lead the Southern Gateway Public Green Foundation, which is the private partner with the City of Dallas building this project. It will fall under the City of Dallas's umbrella Parks and Recreation Department ultimately, but be managed and operated and developed by our foundation in the same way that Clyde Warren operates the zoo, the Arboretum, and others. Next slide. I mentioned the project cost. It's actually a little bit higher than this, but it's about $180 million project. The first phase was about 85 million, and then the second phase is about 97 million. On the first phase, we were fully funded for the bridge by public funding. And of course, my foundation is raising the funds to build all the fun stuff, the amenities on top. That's our budget for that is about 35 million, and we've raised about 2/3 of that budget. So we're definitely making progress on that front. Next slide. We did do an economic impact analysis with the UNT Dallas School of Business, and they estimated almost $1 billion of economic impact just in the first 5 years from the phase one park. That's driven by, of course, the visitors, increases in restaurant and retail sales, property tax revenue. Of course, we have the example of Clyde Warren and what's really happened in that part of downtown. If any of you were around then, maybe some of you were, you remember it was just sort of parking lots and bank drive-through tellers before Clyde Warren came along, and people were like, who would ever go to a park on top of a bridge? And now it's become, some of the most exciting part of Dallas to be and to grow and to thrive. So we really are anticipating that this is going to be a runaway success, and are excited to bring this type of growth to our city. Next slide. We do anticipate, of course, jobs that will be created as a result of constructing the park, upwards of 500. Next slide. And then I do want to spend a little bit of time on this. So I mentioned that we wanted to be very intentional about how the park impacts the day-to-day lives of the people that live around it. And so we spent about a year really doing exhaustive community outreach and in excuse me, asking people in the surrounding community how they hope to see the park benefit them. And we've framed it in these 6 ways. So how can we use the park to really reflect the unique history and culture of Oak Cliff? How do we use it to mitigate some of the health and wellness disparities that exist in the community? This is a zip code, 75216 is to the east of the park. That's the zip code that has, life expectancy that's way below folks that live 3 miles north. You hear some of those statistics. Had some of the highest incidence of COVID, some of those underlying conditions. So we'd like to be very intentional of going beyond the typical park programming and really partner with health institutions to bring some of those benefits to the community. Educational opportunities, I mentioned that we're surrounded by a ton of schools. So we'd love for the park to be kind of an extension of the school environment. And, maybe that's after school programming, demonstrations with the zoo, STEM programming. So we're thinking through all of those opportunities. And then for adults, how can we really increase the resiliency of the adults that live around the park? And so we've done things like financial literacy programs. We're thinking about, how you prepare yourself for homeownership, operating small businesses, et cetera. On the economic development side, we really want the park to be a place where we lift up local small businesses. So we're thinking about what the mix is in the park. We will have food and beverage vendors. We'll not one restaurant, but multiple restaurant offerings. And so we'd like to have a mix that kind of reflects Oak Cliff and allow some folks to be able to grow their business by getting access to all of the 2 million visitors that will be coming to the park. And then we're also being really intentional about contracting as we go to construct the park and make sure that we are using folks in that process that kind of reflect the surrounding community. Diverse housing options. This is a topic that is very near to my heart because we want to ensure that people benefit from the upside of the project. For people who own homes, we know that home ownership can be the path to generational wealth for a lot of folks. And so we want people to be able to benefit from the appreciation, but not be pushed out because they can't afford rising property taxes. And so we're working on that on multiple levels. The biggest way we can affect that is through policy change. In many parts around the country, other cities that sort of experience this have opportunities to do things like freeze property taxes for a certain period of time, or maybe freeze values for, let's say, 10 years to give folks an opportunity to take advantage of that appreciation. And that's harder to do in Texas. So we're working with some of our colleagues at other parks across the city. We established a coalition with the Trinity Park, Fair Park, Trust Republic Land that's doing several parks in Southern Dallas to advocate for policy that could mitigate some of these challenges. And given the current session in Austin, we're working on that together. Excuse me. And then safe and stable neighborhoods is the final pillar. How do we use this park to just really sustain safety and stability? That's going to be primarily by having a very active park, actively programmed, but also we will have, 24-hour security. We were very thoughtful about design elements like lighting and crosswalks just to make sure that it's a very safe and stable place. Next slide. So we took all of the input that we got from the equitable development outreach that we did. We coupled that with the work that our design team did. We hired HKS architects in partnership with SWA to lead our design process. And on the next slide, we came up with these design goals. So by virtue of where we are on I-35, this really will be a gateway to Dallas. Mayor Rawlings likes to say it'll be the front yard for Dallas. And so we wanted to kind of reflect that in the design of the park. We wanted it to feel distinctly reflective of Oak Cliff, integrate with the zoo, integrate with the neighborhood, and ultimately be very accessible and connected. So on the next slide, this is an image of a typical street in Oak Cliff. So, you know, it is a part of Dallas, I like to say the prettiest part of Dallas, because we have topography, we have trees, and, you know, once you cross the Trinity, you sort of are flat all the way to Oklahoma. So, so we really wanted to reflect that in the park. And so keep this in mind, this elevation change, we actually were able to kind of reflect in the park's design. And I love that the design team was able to take these cues into the design of the park. So on the next slide is the master plan. So this is a master plan for the entire 5 acres. On one side is Marsalis, the other is Ewing. Of course, we're building the first phase, which is on the right side from Ewing over to the midpoint. And so lots of amenities that you can see. There will be a stage pavilion, open great lawn. There's a turnaround off the access road for food trucks, maybe drop off. We heard from seniors and schools that it can be difficult to drop kids off or get dropped off at the park. So we created that access off the park. Number 5 on this slide is the 12th Street Promenade. That's the main pedestrian thoroughfare that will go through the park. It actually reconnects the street grid that was divided when the freeway was built. So it runs right into 12th Street at the top of this slide. We're going to turn that into kind of a history walk where we kind of induct a class of the Oak Cliff Walk of Fame, I'm calling it. We'll come up with something better, but and just make a big deal about people who've contributed to Oak Cliff's history or organizations. Number 7 is a large children's area that it goes along the whole side of the south side there, southeast side of the park. Number 8 is actually in the future, there would be a bridge coming in over the access road from the zoo. And you would sort of stay high on that bridge, continue across a catwalk to the rooftop deck of our kind of food and beverage building. You also have an, excuse me, number 9 is an outdoor amphitheater, kind of classroom space. Number 10, we're going to have several water features throughout. So it's an exciting space. We can go to the next slide and we'll see just that split on first phase and where all the amenities go into the first phase. And then on the next slides, we can just scroll through some of the rendering. So this is a rendering of the entire 5 acres. If you go back. Sorry, I did so we could scroll through. Thank you. The entire 5 acre park on the left-hand side, you're seeing the zoo's kind of future plan for green space. There's actually a parking garage also there, but in the short term, we'll be able to use the zoo's parking lot there because they are building another parking garage kind of by the DART station. On the next slide, we can go. This is, excuse me, the phase 1 amenities. On that landing that you're seeing kind of at the bottom left-hand corner, there's actually a rain curtain water feature that goes into the children's area. I think that's kind of neat. The children's area along the foreground there has a tree house in the woods inspiration. Our landscape architect, excuse me, raised his kids in Oak Cliff and talks about how they used to play in the creeks and streams around Oak Cliff. And so we wanted to kind of reflect that reality in the park. And I love that this project kind of has a multi-level feel, which again sort of reflects that topography in Oak Cliff. They realized that there was an elevation 10-foot drop from one end of the park to the other. So they were able to kind of create this interstitial space in the middle that's 20 feet high to kind of give us this multi-level feel. But you see the rooftop deck there, you'll have beautiful views to downtown. We learned from Clyde Warren that in order to drive revenue for sustainability, it would be good to have spaces that we could rent out. So we've had in mind for that in creating the rooftop deck, the space that's inside the building, as well as others. On the next slide. This is just another view of the first phase. You're getting the stage pavilion in the foreground, the great lawn. There is a ramp that kind of comes from that high point down to the front of the park with lookouts that would sort of give you some seating and lookouts over onto the great lawn. Next slide. Here we're seeing the 12th Street Promenade and the food truck drive to the right there. And then there's that main building where we'll have, like I said, multiple food and beverage concepts, elevator tower on the right that takes you up and down to that rooftop deck. Next slide. Another view of the children's area. Next slide. Here we've got a view of kind of entering the 12th Street Promenade from the neighborhood side. Next slide. And then I love this kind of just communal area with the water features, the amphitheater, and the food and beverage building in the background there. Next slide. All right, and then here we are at the top of the amphitheater, kind of looking out over the whole park. Next slide. Another of the children's area. We've got a lot of renderings here. To the right there is, they actually have created this kind of rock wall feeling that sort of reflects that rock formation in Oak Cliffs. It's going to feel very natural. A lot of the elements have kind of wood and kind of natural finishes and look and feel. Next slide. There's that stage pavilion, which of course in the heat of the summer, if nothing's going on, will be a great place for shade. But then next slide can be used for, evening events, movie nights, things like that. We also actually have the capability of doing an ice rink out here. So that'll be fun. We do have naming opportunities for anyone who has a child they want to name the park after. Come talk to me later. Next slide. And then in terms of the timeline, as I mentioned, our goal is to start construction this June. We will be turning dirt while we continue to kind of raise funds to close the gap. We have about a $13 million fundraising gap. But we've heard that, turning dirt and having activity can also help with that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And our plan is to have the park opening at the end of next year. And that is all I have for you. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, sure. I can take a question. There's one in the back there. Thank you.
Are there any plans to do like a pedestrian perimeter so that people could get exercise there too?
We don't have a pedestrian perimeter, like a loop, basically, that you can kind of walk on.
Yep, just a trail.
Yeah, no, but like I said, there is discussion of bringing trails to the park, but no trail at the park. No. Any other questions? Oh, on this side. Yeah.
Inevitably, I'm sure there'll be a lot of apartment complexes that want to move in, get close to the park, kind of utilize that space, especially as the property value goes up. So when you talk about policy changes as far as affordable housing, will there be a way to mandate that some of these apartment complexes that come in will allow folks who, I guess we'll have a income bracket in which they can allow people who can't afford maybe a $2,000 a month apartment to live there and live in their community still?
So that is actually a part of the policy piece. So for instance, one thing that we participated in recently was the passage, expansion of a TIF district. So I don't know if you're familiar with tax increment financing, but it's a mechanism that the city has to sort of encourage development in an area. And there's an existing TIF district in North Oak Cliff, kind of in the Bishop Arts area. They just extended that over to the addresses that border the park on both sides, west and east. And for the first time, the city of Dallas, again, with our work with the Economic Development Department, included a line item for neighborhood stabilization so that it can hopefully address some of those challenges. The other thing is for builders that use TIF financing or TIF funding, there are requirements for affordable housing. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, sure. All right. Oh, one more. Challenges, yeah. The question was about parking and whether there'll be any free parking. So the zoo parking would not be free. But on the opposite side, the sort of neighborhood side, we are working on the options there. So the city owns several lots that are in close proximity. I mean, not right adjacent, but short walking distance. We're working with some of those area landowners as they kind of develop their master plan for the area to include parking options. And then the county building that I mentioned that was about a half block off the park also has a surface parking lot that we're talking to them. They have both a garage and a surface parking lot. And we're talking to them about the potential for using that space as well. All right. Oh, one more. The question was about public-private partnerships, and I'm repeating because I'm assuming, and just how to make those successful and kind of keep them on track. So I think that the city has realized that there is a benefit to public-private partnerships because they just don't have the manpower, funds to maintain these places in the way that that's needed. And a lot of times, unfortunately, when the city is like budgeting, things like parks, get short shrift because there are so many other priorities, streets, roads, garbage pickup. And so you don't want to be sort of, what's the word, beholden to the sort of ups and downs of the political context at any given time. So public-private partnerships have proven to be very successful for the city of Dallas and kind of overall. And I think that certainly as I'm out here talking to folks, there is good reception when you say that we are leveraging funds that have been provided both ways. Like people in government like that the private sector has some skin in the game, and vice versa. The private sector kind of likes that, obviously the public elected officials and government are contributing as well. So in terms of best practices, I think it's, it is a constant stakeholder management challenge. If you can imagine, but there are just so many levels of government and folks that are invested in the success of the project, which is great. And I think as we've gained momentum, we've seen more and more people get interested and excited about what we're doing. So it just is a lot of communication, lot of over communication and constant stakeholder management to kind of make sure that it can be a success, because there are so many great projects happening in Dallas. And so we have to work hard to make sure that we get the attention we need. So.
We have a couple of questions from our online viewers. So the first question is from Caitlin. She would like to know, can you tell us about the health partnerships?
Yes. So we have some recommendations on what these partnerships could look like. So for instance, through our equitable development planning process, we have a whole 50 plus recommendations in each of these areas. And so what we've been thinking about are things like, could we bring a mobile health clinic to the park? That's why we have that turnaround off the access road. Could we do, nutritional classes or vaccinations before school starts? I mean, just things where we can be bringing these services to an underserved community. So that's what we're thinking about, but we're definitely open to ideas. We have not sort of kicked into gear the kind of planning for partnerships yet, because we're right now focused on getting the park built, but we will be doing that, in probably the next 6 months or so, as we get
and
closer
then
to opening.
we'll end with this last question.
Sure.
Are there any environmentally sustainable elements being considered, like living concrete?
Living concrete.
My husband's an architect, so I'm trying to, I want to think it's either sustainable or porous concrete, I guess, could you speak to maybe some of the sustainable elements that are going to be in the park and the materials maybe?
Well, we did. I mean, so, of course there are statistics about Dallas being a heat island. And so just creating green space over a freeway obviously addresses that issue and mitigates some of the heat island effect. In terms of the design, having the building kind of tucked in under the lawn of the second phase, that restaurant and retail building, mitigates some of the heating and cooling requirements. So that was an aspect of it. But it's not LEED certified or anything like that, unfortunately. But
yes, sorry, one more question.
okay.
Thank you so much for this. But if we would like to get more involed, what can we
Yes.
do?
Oh, thank you. Right now, I was sharing earlier that we have, my goal is to close our fundraising gap, and we've done a great job with foundations and some corporate support. But what we really need are individuals, people that really are passionate about the work we're doing, about the opportunity we have to really, reconnect our community and our city, and can sort of be a champion for the project, support it themselves, open doors to others. So that's really, I think, the help that we need in this moment. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And before you step down, got just a little token of our appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Ratley. I am your community VP, and we're here tonight so we can introduce to you all one of our newest partners, New Friends, New Life. They will participate in our community program commencing in the 23-24 year. And it is my honor today to introduce to you all Ms. Bianca Davis. She currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of New Friends, New Life, a leading not-for-profit agency in Dallas, Texas, that restores and empowers women and girls who have been trafficked or exploited. She joined New Friends, New Life in August of 18 as the Chief Development Officer until her appointment to CEO in January of 21. Now, Bianca describes herself as an optimistic servant leader who plants seeds and builds authentic relationships wherever she goes. And I quote, "My life's mission statement is to use my gifts and talents to inspire others into action." Bianca has a combined 20 years of experience in healthcare communications and social services. Prior to joining New Friends, New Life, she served as Senior Director of Fund and Community Development for Genesis Women's Shelter and Support, a local domestic violence recovery agency and another community partner. After serving as Communications Manager for Medical City Dallas Hospital, where she spent 9 years leading community engagement, internal campaigns, and shaping the organizational culture. Bianca holds a bachelor's degree in public relations from Temple University in Philadelphia and a master's degree in organizational communication from Dallas Baptist University. And some of her most recent accomplishments include she was selected as a member of the Presidential Leadership Scholars class of 2023, and in 2022 was named to the CEO magazine's Dallas's 500 most influential and powerful CEOs list. And if I went through the full breadth of her accomplishments, we would be here all night. So we should all consider ourselves so lucky to hear from such an accomplished leader and the wonderful work that New Friends, New Life is doing throughout Dallas. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Bianca Davis.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for not going through that resume. That always makes me cringe. So great to see so many familiar faces and some new faces. I also got some text messages from members who are joining online. So hi, ladies. Good to see you as well. I just have a few minutes. So I just wanted to take that time to tell you a little bit about our agency and why we are so grateful and so excited to be partners in the upcoming cycle. I'm even going to time myself. I'm really going to get you guys out of here before your 8 o'clock deadline. So New Friends, New Life is actually in its 25th year of restoring and empowering women and girls who've been trafficked or exploited. And we started when a topless dancer about 26 years ago walked into Preston Road Church of Christ and said, "I can't do this anymore. Can you help me?" There was a women's group meeting at the time, and they surrounded her with the love she needed, the support she needed, the financial support, the emotional support, spiritual support, and she kept bringing her friends out of the life. And so that's why our name was originally Amy's Friends, in recognition of that one woman. But I often think about the group of women who she met that night, and I thought about how different that outcome could have been if they had said, "Wait, what do you mean? And what type of woman is the type of woman who's in a club or on the corner and we don't know how to serve you, or we have no interest in serving you because didn't you just make some bad choices? Because we see that a lot. We see women who come to us who have been judged and mistreated and abused by people who say that they care for them. And we know how powerful it is when women come together on an issue. And so it's no surprise that that women's group was just in the right place at the right time. And it's led to an agency now where we are serving 350 women and girls every single year, bringing them out of that life of trafficking and exploitation. It's also no coincidence that this is Women's History Month. And on Wednesday, we'll be celebrating International Women's Day. And it's just a fantastic time. Every day I'm like, this is a really great time to be in this work, to be in this space, and to be representing other women and girls. We do know that men and boys are also trafficked, that it is a huge issue for women and girls, men and boys, but the issue of sex trafficking disproportionately affects women and girls, and it disproportionately affects women and girls of color. So it's just so critical that we have the support of a group like Junior League. So several reasons why we exist. We exist because Texas is second in the nation for highest number of trafficking victims. We exist because Dallas is number 2 in the state, behind Houston. We exist because this is a $99 million industry. Every year, traffickers are profiting $99 million selling women and girls, men and boys right here in our community. And we exist because the average age that a girl is trafficked is 15 years old. So think of your daughters, your nieces, the neighbor. 15 years old in the United States is the average age that a girl is trafficked. We know that trafficking can happen to anyone, but that there are groups who are disproportionately affected by the issue, as I mentioned. But I want you to know that it's not about these 3 things. So trafficking is, first of all, not about movement. I know that's a little confusing because the word trafficking kind of denotes that you're moving from one place to another, one city to another, across a border. Trafficking has absolutely nothing to do with movement. You can be in your neighborhood, have never left your city, and still be a trafficking victim. The only thing that's required is that by force, fraud, or coercion, you're compelled to commit a sexual act and someone else is profiting from it. So that's the only requirement. Thankfully, if this person is a minor, you don't have to prove force, fraud, or coercion. It's automatically a crime. But trafficking is not about movement. It's also not about white vans in a parking lot, which we think of, right? From the movies like Taken or any other example of the sensationalized kidnappings that you see. You're like, if we can just keep our kids like away from the shrubbery, then they will be fine walking down the street, right? Or you're looking for white vans and you think that that's it. There are instances where kidnapping does happen, but by and large, this is about someone who is preying on the very basic needs that we all have to feel loved and accepted or to be financially safe. So he is showing up where there is any crack in her foundation, and he's showing up as someone who cares about her, who loves her, who wants to be a boyfriend. So if all we're looking for is white vans in a parking lot, we're going to miss how it's happening here in our community. And the third thing that trafficking is not about is it's not about people somewhere else, in another country, in another part of the world. It's happening in our own backyard. We get this question all the time. Of the 357 women and girls you serve, how many of them are from Mexico? Or they call out another community or another country. And we're like 99.9 of them are, 99.9% of our members are local residents and citizens who have been trafficked and exploited by other local residents and citizens. So this is not something that's happening just to other people in other parts of the world. We have 3 main programs at New Friends Through Life. We have our women's program where we take women through 4 phases, much like graduating from college. We look at their case management needs. What are your very basic needs? Where are you sleeping? What are you eating? Because we can't counsel you if you don't have those basic needs met. Then we look at your counseling needs. How do we unpack that emotional trauma in a healthy way? Then we look at her economic empowerment needs. How do you reintegrate a survivor into the community when she probably has a criminal record, she has minimal Education, she has a spotty work history. She may have multiple children. So how do you take someone like that and introduce her back into the community? After she graduates, I smile every time I talk about it, but we have a ceremony that we host at Preston Road Church of Christ in the most amazing full circle moment, but she gets to don a cap and gown and gets to walk down the aisle and be celebrated. She brings her family members, she brings her children, she brings her coworkers. So this issue that's been steeped in such shame and embarrassment now becomes a moment for her to say, look, I did this. And so many of our women are like, we've never graduated from anything before. And this is their first moment. At the last graduation, the Dallas Symphony Orchestra sent a quartet and they played Pomp and Circumstance. Like, I get goosebumps. Played Pomp and Circumstance as those women walked down the aisle. And it was just the most amazing night. And so we encourage our partners to be a part of our phase-up ceremonies and our graduation ceremonies. And really quickly, the other two services that we offer are our Youth Resource Center, where we serve teen youth ages 12 to 22. What I love about the YRC is we're not just serving survivors, but we're serving girls who are at risk. And the goal is that they can get through our program without ever becoming a trafficking victim. So if she's run away multiple times, if she's had interactions with the juvenile justice system, if she's in foster care, if she's come from backgrounds of poverty, domestic violence, if she's experienced childhood sexual abuse, if she lives with someone other than her maternal family or her biological family. We know all of these things put her at risk. And at our YRC, we just create a safe community for her to enroll in college and make sure she's completing her homework, make sure she's learning about healthy behaviors to develop a plan for her life. One of our most recent youth who graduated from the YRC, she also graduated from Vanderbilt. She took her classes online and she's now at Johns Hopkins because why not? So our girls are really doing amazing things. And then the final program that we offer is our work with men and boys. We know that most of the traffickers are men and most of the buyers are men. So if we're going to end this issue, we have to engage our good guys. And so our men come and learn how to connect the dots. Like this isn't a victimless crime. And if you're doing things like watching pornography or going to a strip club, that you are contributing to the problem as a man. And so our guys are just doing great things. On Valentine's Day, they came in with their chocolate and their roses, and they played games with our ladies under supervision of our staff. And our women have never experienced a something for nothing moment from a guy. It's like, yes, you're calling me beautiful. What do I owe you for that? And so for them to just feel accepted and loved was really transformative. And so we do all these things because we're answering this one question that every survivor walks through our doors wondering or asking. And that question is, are you for me or not? Because as a survivor once put it, when you survive trafficking, what you've really survived is a lifetime of disappointments, where the people who were supposed to care for you, supposed to love you, just didn't. And instead of feeling that shame and that neglect that they often get when, as I mentioned, people are saying, what type of woman is on a corner? When they walk into our doors, we're answering that question. Yes, we're for you. And so support and partnerships like this really make that possible for the women and girls we serve. And I always get the question, well, isn't it just so hard? And isn't it just so difficult to do this every day? And yes, it's hard work. But also every day I'm learning that our women and girls are just like us. Survivors of trafficking are so much more like you and I than different from us. And every dream you've ever had for yourself, they had them for themselves as well. What they need is someone to remove the barriers, help them overcome the trauma so they can get back to the life that they were designed to live. And that's what we get to help them do every day at New Friends New Life. And so I want to thank you so much for your support. I know that there's so many issues that warrant your support and that are important to you. I will also say this, that sex trafficking sits at the intersection of a lot of those issues. So if you care about this, I always use the example of the Jenga puzzle, with all the different logs. And you can look at sex trafficking as one of those pieces. And what happens when you pull out a piece? It affects all the other pieces. So sex trafficking sits at the intersection of domestic violence and childhood sexual abuse and poverty and lack of access to education and all the isms and all the systems that are at play. So by caring about this issue, you're inadvertently supporting other major social ills supporting the elimination of other major social ills in our community. And I want to thank you for that. That's it. Yes.
Thank you.
Are you still doing the best tours?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I was going to ask. Thank you. Thank you for that plug. Your check's in the mail. Okay. So, so one of the ways that you can get involved, of course, is to visit newfriendsdolife.org or follow us on social media. But we offer these monthly community bus tours free to the public, where we take you to areas in the community where trafficking busts have happened. And what's so amazing is people assume that we're going to go to Harry Hines or some seedy part of a neighborhood, and you will be surprised at where we stop. And we say it happens there, and it happens there, and it happens there. And you're like, wow, I work near here, or that's near where my kids go to school. So if you go to our website, newfriendsdolife.org, and look under education, you can see the bus tour, and you can just sign up for that free tour. Thank you for that. Mhm.
I think Ashley Early is going to come up here next. But before I turn it over to her, I do want to just put in another plug for those bus tours. I've done one. It's incredibly powerful. And also just a quick reminder that community registration is still ongoing. You still have time to submit your placements until March 12th. And as I mentioned, New Friends, New Life is returning to our community program next year. So if you are interested in volunteering with them next year, please go in and submit your placement choices. Ashley?
Hi, thank you. Good evening. My name is Ashley Early, and I'm this year's Women Lead Committee Chair. Sorry, thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay, I'll start over. I'm Ashley Early. I'm this year's Women Lead Committee Chair, and I am here just to promote our upcoming women's speech competition that's coming up later this month on March 29th. So that's about 3.5 weeks away. So if you can please mark your calendar now, we'd love for you to attend. For those in the audience who may not be familiar with what Women Lead is, I'd like to just give a really brief overview of our signature project. It was created initially to help female high school students pursue their dreams of higher education and to create opportunities for future women leaders. JLD and Mary Kay actually collaborated in 2013 to present the initial year of the Women Lead Scholarship Program. The program began at Emmett J. Conrad High School and in 2015 expanded to include Thomas Jefferson High School and South Oak Cliff. Ryan LLC joined as our sponsor in 2018. This is our 10th year for Women Lead, and to date, we've awarded $305,000 to 60 incredible students who are now pursuing degrees at schools including Brown University, University of Texas at Austin, Texas A&M, and the University of North Texas. Our 10 finalists were selected from a highly competitive set of 20 applicants from those 3 high schools that I just mentioned: Conrad, South Oak Cliff, and Thomas Jefferson. To be eligible for the scholarship, each student must have had a 3.0 GPA at the end of her junior year. She must plan to attend a 2 or 4 year university, and she must have good record of character. This last fall, my committee hosted an application workshop where we went over the logistics and the details of the application. And then we scored the applications based on academic performance, resume, letters of recommendation, transcript, and an essay. And we have since invited the top 10 ranked applicants to speak at this month's speech competition. We also held a speaking workshop in early February where we helped the students turn their essay into a speech. So please, please, please put this on your calendar for March 29th. Doors open at 6 and the ceremony will actually begin at 6:30 and it may go a little bit past 7. We'd love for you to attend, not only to be inspired, but you actually get GMM credit. So again, please, please come. We'd love to have you here. It's only an in-person event and we're capping the number of JLD members who can actually attend. So if you would like to register, go to this link here on the screen, jldallas.org, and then go to calendar and then group meeting. And then finally, I just want to plug for next year, Catherine McClellan is the chair for Women Lead next year, and she has spots still open on her committee. So if you're interested in learning more, or if you want to learn more about the positions that she has open, please email scholarship@jldallas.org. Again, that's scholarship@jldallas.org. And we'd love to give you more information if you're interested. Thank you.
Hi, I am not Heather, but I'm filling in for her. So I am plugging our amazing luncheon, and it could not come at a better time because everything that we do for our luncheon is for our community programs so that we can support New Friends, New Life and all of our great parks things and everything going on. So we need your support. Buy your ticket if you haven't bought your ticket. It's Rob Lowe. Buy your ticket. And so also, our raffle tickets are going to go on sale next week. And so I want to talk quickly about the raffle items. See if I can figure out this. No, it's okay. Oh, sorry, I'm not tech savvy on this stuff. But anyway, I'll just forget that one. So our raffle tickets are going on sale. So there's a $5,000 gift card to Central Market and Plains Capital that'll be available. We have a diamond and gold bracelet from Bachendorf's and an exclusive wine tasting for 10 at $55.70. So you're going to want to get all your raffle tickets. I don't have the prices on those, but I'm sure they'll be online. So just keep checking the website for those. And then lastly, one of our favorite things that we can do is to honor one of our members. And so you can do our milestone memberships. I believe it's $100, and you can honor someone who has had a great impact on you in the league and that you just want to support and honor at the luncheon. So get your ticket. It's going to be amazing. And remember, everything that we do for our community and our luncheon is how we support our community programs.
Thanks, Jen. The meeting credit QR code here is a little bit of a teaser. We actually have one more item that we're going to pull up here in a second. So Junior League of Dallas is a member of the Association of Junior Leagues International, which we refer to around here as AJLI. We are that allows us to take transfers. We get some benefits from AJLI. We've been a member of them for many, many years. And one of the things that AJLI requires us to do is have the same mission statement. So all leagues across the United States and internationally have the same mission. A couple of years ago, AJLI embarked on a collaborative process to revise its mission statement. And they did this with a couple of goals. The first was to update the language because the original mission was developed sometime, I believe, in the 1920s or 30s. And then also to better reflect the dual mission that the leagues have, which is providing women with leadership skills and also offering opportunities to do important community work. So they hosted a series of workshops over during the pandemic. I think it was during 2021. They had opportunities for leagues, including our league and leagues all across the country and internationally, to join collaboration sessions, talk about the wording, talk about the goals of the mission. And so that culminated in the adoption of a new mission at AJLI's annual conference, which took place in May of 2022. Next slide, please. This new mission is reflected here. Sorry, can we go back to the, no problem. Thank you. So you'll see our current mission here on the left, which is the Junior League of Dallas is an organization of women committed to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women, and improving the community through the effective action and leadership of trained volunteers. And AJLI has adopted the new mission on the right, which if we were to adopt it would read, the Junior League of Dallas is an organization of women whose mission is to advance women's leadership for meaningful community impact through volunteer action, collaboration, and training. So it's a little bit updated, but the fundamental concepts are still embroiled in that mission. Next slide, please. So the reason that I'm bringing this here to you tonight is many of you probably received some emails about this. Every one of us is a member of AJLI in addition to being a member of JLD. And so you probably received some communications from AJLI at the beginning of the year and throughout the year in your membership emails noting the new mission. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are required to adopt the mission to be in harmony with AJLI's policies and their mission. And so our board and the incoming board and the outgoing board are evaluating what the impact of adopting the new mission is, whether it's, reprinting our paper, our mission on all of our letterhead, things like that. And because the mission is included in our bylaws, it will require a membership vote. And so that's why I'm providing this update to you tonight, just so you'll have an opportunity to look at this, think about it. We potentially will bring it up for a vote in May or sometime next year. But if you have any thoughts or feedback on this, please let us know. But This is something that AGLI did adopt in May of last year. And so we will be evaluating next steps, and stay tuned for more. That is the last thing on our agenda tonight. So we can go ahead and put the QR code up. While you are filling out that meeting credit survey, I do have a few final reminders. So this is our last GMM of the year with a virtual option. And I'm so happy to see we have 400 people almost joining us online. But if you still need a meeting credit and you want to be at the May GMM, you're going to have to be here in person. So please go ahead and register for that. Another reminder about dues, the deadline is April 1st in just a couple of weeks. As a quick reminder, you probably have seen this in our email communications, but we do have options for auto renew and options for you to cover the credit card fees. We do appreciate even those small donations add up. So we really do appreciate you considering doing that. If you still need a placement for next year, we mentioned this a couple of times, with the community placement deadline is March 12th. Please get your placement selections in by that deadline. And then a couple upcoming events. We've got a great sustainer panel on March 21st that the member engagement committee is putting on. That panel will talk about what it's like to be a sustainer. And I'm actually really excited to become a sustainer in the very near future. They have lots of fun social activities, fun events. They did a park tour. We've talked a lot about parks tonight, and they did a bus tour where they traveled to different parks throughout the city and got to learn more about them. So just really fun and exciting things that you can look forward to when you become a sustainer. And then we also have a Pro activity that's going to happen, I think a tour or some sort of event that member engagement is working on, and that's going to be April 27th. So please keep an eye out for more information on that. And then last but not least, if you are planning to attend group meetings or May GMM, please make sure to register online. We are still trying to, for meeting credit purposes, there's a match process that goes on. So if you register and you have a meeting credit survey, it makes it much easier for the committee to award you meeting credit. And so if you could register, and then if you're not able to come, update your registration, that really helps expedite getting that meeting credit, especially towards the end of the year. So with that, our meeting is adjourned, and please make sure you fill out the meeting credit survey if you have not already. Thank you.